Document. Part 1. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the Grand Assembly Hall, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs as representatives from dozens of alien species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Above them, a massive holographic map of the galaxy rotated slowly, its glowing colors casting faint reflections on their faces. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his expression calm and steady. Today was the day humanity would change its fate forever. Mia Bennett sat a few rows away, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. She wasn't here for politics or speeches. She had come to observe. As one of Earth's leading scientists, she'd spent years studying alien technology, often feeling like humanity was borrowing too much and creating too little. To her, this moment felt inevitable. Humanity had always been treated as the younger sibling in the Galactic Council, constantly reminded of how far behind they were compared to other civilizations. Now Ethan was about to take a stand, whether the galaxy liked it or not. The speaker, before Ethan finished his address, and a hush fell over the room. All eyes turned toward the human representative as he stepped up to the podium. For a brief second, Ethan hesitated, glancing at Mia. She gave him a small nod, almost imperceptible, but enough to steady his nerves. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Today marks a new chapter in the history of our people," Ethan said, his voice strong and clear. "For centuries, we have sought guidance and partnership within the Galactic Council. We joined, hoping to learn, grow, and contribute to the greater good of all intelligent life. But today, we must acknowledge that this partnership has not been equal." A ripple of unease spread through the audience. Some leaned forward, intrigued. Others exchanged worried glances. Ethan continued, undeterred. "We are grateful for the knowledge and opportunities you have shared with us. However, we can no longer ignore the imbalance in our relationship. Humanity is asked to give more than it receives. Our resources are drained, our innovations claimed, and our voices silenced when we dare to question the status quo." Mia listened intently, her fingers tapping lightly against her knee. She knew what was coming next, and though she agreed with Ethan's reasoning, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Leaving the council wasn't just a political decision, it was a gamble, with consequences no one could fully predict. Ethan paused, letting his words sink in. Then, with unwavering resolve, he delivered the final blow. "It is time for humanity to forge its own path. From this day forward, Earth will no longer be a member of the Galactic Council. We thank you for the lessons of the past, but our future belongs to us alone." The room erupted into chaos. Alien diplomats shouted questions, some in outrage, others in disbelief. A tall, insect-like creature with shimmering wings rose from its seat, clicking its mandibles furiously. Across the aisle, a reptilian ambassador slammed its fist on the table, scales bristling with anger. Ethan stood firm, meeting each reaction with unshakable composure. Beside him, Ryan Carter, a former council liaison, looked pale and shaken. He had warned Ethan about the backlash, but even he hadn't expected such an explosive response. As the commotion grew louder, Mia slipped out of the hall unnoticed. She needed fresh air and time to think. Outside, the sky shimmered with artificial light, the cityscape stretching endlessly into the horizon. Humanity's capital world was a marvel of engineering, built with both human ingenuity and alien designs. It symbolized everything they had achieved under the Council's watchful eye, and now, it would become the foundation of something entirely new. Mia sighed, leaning against a railing as she stared at the distant stars. What would happen next? Without the Council's protection, Earth would be vulnerable. Trade routes would collapse, diplomatic ties would sever, and enemies might see this as an opportunity to strike. Yet, despite these risks, part of her felt a strange sense of excitement. This was humanity's chance to prove itself, to show the galaxy that Earth didn't need handouts to thrive. Back inside the assembly hall, Ethan finally stepped down from the podium. His face was flushed, but his eyes gleamed with determination. Ryan approached him cautiously, his tone low and urgent. "You've made your point, Ethan. But do you realize what you've just done? You've declared war on the entire galaxy." Ethan shook his head. "No, I haven't declared war. I've declared independence. If the galaxy chooses to see it as a threat, then so be it. But I believe most civilizations will respect our decision in time." Ryan frowned, unconvinced. "Respect doesn't stop missiles, Ethan. We're walking into uncharted territory, and it's going to get ugly." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Then we'll deal with it together. Humanity has faced worse odds before. We'll adapt, improvise, and survive. That's what we do." As the two men walked out of the hall, the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. Somewhere in the distance, a ship roared into the sky, carrying news of Earth's departure. To every corner of the galaxy, chaos would follow. They all knew it. But for now, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever came next. And somewhere deep in space, unseen forces began to stir, watching and waiting for the right moment to act. Document Part 2. The days following humanity's departure from the Galactic Council were filled with a strange mix of hope and uncertainty. On Earth, news broadcasts replayed Ethan Cole's speech endlessly, sparking debates in every corner of the globe. Some people celebrated the decision, waving flags and chanting slogans about freedom and independence. Others gathered in quiet corners, whispering their fears about what might come next. The streets buzzed with energy, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Mia Bennett spent most of her time locked away in her lab, surrounded by stacks of data tablets and glowing screens. She had always been a thinker, someone who preferred numbers and equations over crowds and speeches. Now, more than ever, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Without access to alien technology, humanity would have to rely on its own ingenuity to survive. Mia knew this was both a challenge and an opportunity, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into uncharted waters without a map. One afternoon, as she pored over schematics for Earth's orbital defense systems, Ryan Carter walked into the lab. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a look of exhaustion. He slumped into a chair across from her desk and ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Things are falling apart out there," he said, his voice low and strained. "Trade routes are collapsing, supply chains are breaking down, and half the colonies are panicking." Mia didn't look up from her work. "We knew this would happen," she replied simply. "Leaving the council wasn't going to be easy, but we can handle it. We've got smart people working on solutions." Ryan sighed. "It's not just logistics, Mia. There's talk of retaliation whispers coming from inside the council. Some factions aren't happy about us walking away. They think we're setting a dangerous precedent." Mia finally turned to face him, her expression serious. "Do you think they'll attack?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted, "but I wouldn't put it past them. The Xyrans especially, they've never liked us. If anyone's going to make a move, it'll be them." Mia frowned, leaning back in her chair. The Xyrans were one of the Council's most powerful factions, known for their aggressive expansion and ruthless tactics. If they decided to take action against Earth, humanity would be in serious trouble. Still, Mia refused to let fear dictate her actions. "Then we prepare," she said firmly. "We strengthen our defenses, improve our technology, and make sure everyone knows we're not backing down." Ryan nodded, though his expression remained troubled. Easier said than done. "Most of our advanced systems came from alien tech. Without the Council, we're starting from scratch." "We'll figure it out," Mia insisted. "We've got no other choice." Meanwhile, on the outskirts of human-controlled space, Jacob Hayes sat in the cockpit of his fighter ship, staring at the endless expanse of stars. He was stationed at Outpost Delta, a remote base near the edge of the solar system. It wasn't glamorous work most days. He spent hours patrolling empty sectors, but Jacob took pride in doing his part to protect Earth. Lately, however, things had started to feel off. For the past few weeks, he'd noticed strange readings on his sensors of movement where nothing should be. At first, he dismissed them as glitches or debris floating through space. But then, 2 nights ago, he spotted something that sent chills down his spine. A shadowy shape, too large to be natural, drifted silently past his patrol route. Whatever it was, it didn't appear on any official charts, and when Jacob tried to hail it, there was no response now. As he reviewed the recordings from his last shift, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadowy object hadn't attacked or made any hostile moves, but its presence alone was enough to unsettle him. He forwarded the footage to command, hoping someone higher up would take it seriously. So far, all he'd received was a vague acknowledgement and instructions to keep monitoring the area. Back on Earth, General Laura Drake reviewed Jacob's report with growing concern. As head of Earth's military forces, she had seen her share of threats, but this was different. The isolation brought on by leaving the Council left humanity vulnerable in ways many hadn't anticipated. If these mysterious objects turned out to be hostile and if they belonged to an alien faction looking to punish Earth, the consequences could be catastrophic. Laura called an emergency meeting with her top advisors, including Ethan and Mia. The room was tense as she laid out the situation. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet," she said, pointing to a map of the solar system projected onto the wall. "But we need to assume the worst. These readings suggest something or someone's testing our borders. If they decide to strike, we won't have much time to react." Ethan listened intently, his jaw tightening. He had known leaving the Council would come with risks, but hearing about potential threats so soon was sobering. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Resources," Laura replied bluntly. "More ships, better weapons, and stronger defenses, right? Now, we're stretched thin. If we're going to hold our ground, we need to act fast." Mia nodded, already mentally running through ideas. "I'll double my team's efforts on the quantum reactor project. If we can get it operational, it could power our orbital cannons and give us a fighting chance." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Do whatever it takes. Humanity's future depends on it." As the meeting broke up, Mia lingered behind, staring at the map of the solar system. The shadowy objects hovering near the edges seemed insignificant compared to the vastness of space, but she knew appearances could be deceiving. Whatever was out there, it was watching and waiting. In the days that followed, tensions continued to rise. Reports of strange occurrences trickled in from other outposts, each one adding to the growing sense of unease. People began stockpiling supplies, preparing for the worst. Politicians argued over how to respond, while scientists like Mia worked around the clock to bolster Earth's defenses. Despite the chaos, Ethan remained resolute. He gave speeches to reassure the public, met with military leaders to coordinate strategies, and reached out to former allies within the Council, hoping to build bridges before it was too late. But even he couldn't ignore the gnawing doubt. In the back of his mind, had they made the right decision? Or had they doomed humanity to a future of conflict and struggle? Only time would tell. For now, all they could do was prepare and hope they were ready for whatever came next. Document Part 3. The first signs of real trouble came quietly, almost like a whisper in the vast emptiness of space. At Outpost Delta, Jacob Hayes was on his usual patrol when his sensors picked up something unusual, a faint energy signature that pulsed irregularly, like a heartbeat, struggling to keep rhythm. It wasn't the first time he'd seen strange readings since humanity left the Galactic Council, but this one felt different. The signal was moving, shifting unpredictably, as if it were alive. Jacob leaned forward in his seat, his fingers flying over the controls to zoom in on the source. Whatever it was still far away, too distant for him to identify clearly, but its erratic behavior made his stomach churn. He tried hailing it again, broadcasting standard greetings in multiple languages, just as he'd been trained to do. But there was no response. Nothing but silence. Back at the outpost, Hannah Lewis sat in front of her workstation, monitoring incoming data from patrol ships like Jacob's. She had joined the military straight out of college, eager to contribute to humanity's growing independence. Now, she found herself staring at screens filled with numbers and graphs, searching for patterns or anomalies that might explain what was happening beyond Earth's borders. When Jacob's report came through, she immediately flagged it for further analysis. "This doesn't look natural," she muttered under her breath, zooming in on the energy signature. The pattern reminded her of something, a fragment of alien tech she'd studied during her training, but she couldn't quite place it. Whatever it was, it didn't match any known human systems. She forwarded the data to Mia Bennett, who was leading Earth's efforts to develop new technologies without relying on the Galactic Council. Mia's lab had become a hub of activity, buzzing with scientists working around the clock to strengthen Earth's defenses. When Hannah's message arrived, Mia dropped everything to examine it, her brow furrowed as she analyzed the readings. "This is bad," she said aloud, though no one else was in the room. The energy signature bore similarities to Zyran technology, the same faction Ryan Carter had warned about weeks earlier. If the Zyrans were testing Earth's borders, it meant they weren't just watching anymore. They were preparing. Mia called an urgent meeting with Ethan Cole and General Laura Drake. The three of them gathered in a secure briefing room, where Mia projected the energy signature onto the wall. "We've got a problem," she began, her tone grave. "These readings suggest we're dealing with Zyron surveillance drones. They're probing our defenses, looking for weaknesses." Ethan frowned, leaning forward in his chair. "Are you?" "Sure. I can't say for certain," Mia admitted. "But it fits their MO. The Zyrans always scout before they strike." Laura crossed her arms, her expression grim. "If they're sending drones, it means they're planning something big. We need to step up our patrols and reinforce our outer colonies. If they decide to attack, those areas will be hit first." Ethan nodded. "Do it. And start evacuating civilians from the most vulnerable locations. I don't want anyone caught off guard." As orders filtered down through the chain of command, life on Earth grew more tense. News outlets reported rumors of alien activity near the edges of human-controlled space, sparking panic in some regions. Stores ran out of emergency supplies, and people began barricading themselves in their homes. Governments scrambled to maintain order, but whispers of war spread faster than anyone could contain them. Jacob, meanwhile, continued his patrols, his nerves stretched thin. Every shadow in the void seemed suspicious now, every flicker on his sensors a potential threat. On his third shift, after detecting the strange energy signature, he spotted something even more alarming: fleet of ships. Small, but unmistakably alien, lurking just outside sensor range. They weren't attacking or communicating. They simply hovered there, watching. Jacob's hands trembled as he recorded the sighting and sent it back to command. "They're here," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the hum of his ship's engines. "They're really here." At headquarters, Ethan and Laura reviewed Jacob's footage. The ships were sleek and angular, their designs eerily familiar. "Zyrans," Laura confirmed, her jaw tightening. "Just like we feared." Ethan clenched his fists. "How long until they make a move?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Laura replied. "Could be days, hours, or minutes. We need to assume the worst and act accordingly." Orders went out to all military units: increased readiness levels, fortify key positions, and prepare for combat. Engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade Earth's orbital defense grid, while pilots like Jacob trained for dogfights against superior alien technology. Despite their best efforts, however, morale remained low. Everyone knew humanity was outnumbered and outgunned. Amid the chaos, Mia threw herself into her work, determined to find a way to level the playing field. Her team experimented with quantum reactors, trying to harness their immense power to create weapons capable of repelling the Xyrans. Progress was slow, frustratingly so, but Mia refused to give up. "If we can get this right," she told her team, "we might stand a chance." As days turned into weeks, the tension reached a breaking point. Strange incidents multiplied along the edges of human-controlled space. Communication relays were sabotaged, supply lines disrupted and isolated. Outposts went dark without warning. Each event added fuel to the growing fire of fear and uncertainty. One evening, Ethan stood on the balcony of his office, staring up at the stars. He thought about all the lives depending on him to make the right decisions, to lead humanity through this crisis. For the first time since leaving the Galactic Council, doubt crept into his mind. Had he been too hasty? Too reckless? The galaxy was vast and unforgiving, and humanity was still so young. Behind him, Ryan Carter approached cautiously. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Ethan sighed. "I don't know, Ryan. Sometimes I wonder if we bit off more than we can chew." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe. But we've come too far to turn back now. All we can do is keep moving forward." Ethan nodded slowly, forcing himself to push aside his doubts. Ryan was right. They couldn't afford second-guessing now. Humanity had chosen its path, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Out in the darkness of space, the Xyran fleet remained silent, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. For now, humanity held its breath, bracing for the storm that loomed on the horizon. Document Part 4. The attack came without warning, shattering the fragile calm that had settled over humanity. It was the middle of the night on Earth, when alarms blared across military bases and outposts, jolting soldiers awake. Jacob Hayes was on patrol near Jupiter when it happened. His sensors lit up with dozens of red blips, alien ships emerging from hyperspace in overwhelming numbers. The Xyrans had finally made their move. Jacob's heart raced as he transmitted an urgent message back to command. "Enemy fleet detected. They're heading straight for us." His voice cracked under the strain, but there was no time to panic. He adjusted his ship's trajectory, preparing to intercept the invaders. Behind him, reinforcements scrambled to join the fight. But they were outnumbered 10-1. The first wave of Xyran fighters streaked past Jupiter's moons, their sleek designs slicing through space like knives. Jacob fired his weapons, scoring a hit on one of the smaller ships, but the rest barely slowed down. Their shields absorbed most of his attacks, leaving his own craft vulnerable. A blast rocked his ship, sending sparks flying across the cockpit. Jacob gritted his teeth and held on, determined not to retreat. Back on Earth, Ethan Cole stood in the command center, watching live feeds from the battle. Screens displayed chaotic scenes of explosions and fleeing human ships. General Laura Drake barked orders into her communicator, coordinating defenses as best she could. "Pull back the outer squadrons," she shouted. "We need to regroup and protect Earth." Ethan clenched his fists, feeling powerless as the situation spiraled out of control. This was exactly what Ryan Carter had warned about: assault by an alien faction bent on punishing humanity for leaving the Galactic Council. Now, the consequences were unfolding in real time, and millions of lives hung in the balance. Mia Bennett worked feverishly in her lab, trying to activate the quantum reactors that might give humanity a fighting chance. Her team surrounded her, shouting updates and adjusting controls as energy levels surged dangerously high. "We're almost there," Mia yelled over the noise. "Just hold on a little longer." Outside, cities burned. The Xyrans launched devastating strikes against Earth's orbital defense platforms, crippling key installations within minutes. Lasers rained down on major population centers, turning skyscrapers into rubble and scattering terrified civilians. Emergency broadcasts urged people to seek shelter, but many didn't make it in time. The death toll climbed rapidly, and despair spread like wildfire. Hannah Lewis watched the carnage unfold from her station at Outpost Delta. Tears streamed down her face as she monitored reports of destroyed colonies and fallen comrades. She felt useless, stuck behind a desk while others fought and died. But then, something caught her eye: pattern in the Zyran movements. They weren't attacking randomly. They were targeting specific locations, likely searching for something. "Wait," she whispered, pulling up maps of the affected areas. "They're after the reactors." She immediately alerted Mia, who confirmed her suspicions. "They know about our experiments," Mia said grimly. "If they find the reactors, they'll destroy them before we can use them." Ethan listened intently as Mia explained the situation. "We have to protect those reactors at all costs," he declared. "Without them, we lose any chance of turning this around." Laura nodded. "I'll send reinforcements to guard the facility, but we're stretched thin as it is. We'll have to pull troops from other fronts." As the battle raged on, Jacob fought valiantly alongside his squadron, buying precious time for Earth's forces to regroup. One by one, his teammates fell, their ships consumed by fiery blasts. Still, he refused to back down. With every shot fired, he thought of his family back home, of everyone counting on him to hold the line. Finally, a breakthrough came. Mia's team managed to stabilize the quantum reactors, channeling their immense power into Earth's remaining orbital cannons. The cannons roared to life, unleashing beams of energy that tore through the Zyran fleet. For the first time since the attack began, humanity gained the upper hand. But the victory was short-lived. The Zyrans regrouped quickly, launching a second wave even larger than the first. Waves of enemy fighters swarmed toward Earth, determined to finish what they had started. Ethan watched in horror as the screens showed fresh waves of ships descending upon the planet. "We can't keep this up forever," Laura said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "We're running out of options." Ethan shook his head, refusing to give in to despair. "We'll fight until we can't fight anymore. Humanity doesn't back down." In the midst of the chaos, Jacob received new orders: lead a suicide mission to disable the Zyran flagship. If successful, it would cripple their command structure and force them to retreat. Jacob hesitated for only a moment before accepting the task. He knew the odds were against him, but someone had to do it. As he prepared for his final flight, Jacob recorded a brief message for his family. "I love you," he said simply, his voice steady despite the weight of his decision. Then, with a deep breath, he launched his ship toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The battle reached its climax as Jacob approached the Zyran flagship. Explosions lit up the darkness, and debris filled the void. Jacob dodged laser fire, weaving between enemy ships as he closed in on his target. With one last burst of speed, he slammed his fighter into the flagship's hull, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed the vessel. The impact rippled through the Zyran fleet, causing confusion and disarray. Seizing the opportunity, Earth's forces launched a counteroffensive, pushing the invaders back toward the edge of the solar system. By dawn, the Zyrans had retreated, leaving behind a trail of destruction, but also a glimmer of hope. Ethan stood in the command center, surveying the damage. Cities lay in ruins, and countless lives had been lost. Yet, humanity had survived, against all odds. They had fought back and proven themselves capable of standing toe-to-toe with a superior foe. Mia collapsed into a chair, exhausted but relieved. The reactors had worked, giving humanity a lifeline in their darkest hour. As she stared at the monitors showing the retreating Zyran fleet, she allowed herself a small smile. They had won this round, but the war was far from over. Document Part 5. In the aftermath of the Zyran attack, Earth was a planet scarred, but not broken. Smoke still rose from the ruins of cities, and emergency crews worked tirelessly to clear debris and tend to survivors. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded, and makeshift shelters housed thousands of displaced families. The cost of the battle had been immense, entire neighborhoods reduced to ash. Countless lives lost, but humanity had endured. It was a fragile victory, one bought with blood and sacrifice, but it proved something vital. Earth could fight back. Ethan Cole walked through the streets of what used to be a bustling urban center, now a wasteland of shattered glass and twisted metal. His suit was covered in dust, his face lined with exhaustion. Around him, people moved like ghosts, their eyes hollow with grief. Some shouted accusations at him, blaming him for bringing this disaster upon them by leaving the Galactic Council. Others simply stared, too numb to speak. Ethan bore their anger silently, knowing they were right to question his decisions. But deep down, he believed humanity's path toward independence was worth the pain if only they could survive long enough to see it through. Mia Bennett returned to her lab after barely sleeping for 2 days. Her team had managed to stabilize the quantum reactors during the battle, but the strain on the systems was immense. Cracks had formed in the reactor casings, and readings showed signs of instability. If pushed too hard again, the reactors might fail completely, or worse, explode. Mia knew they couldn't rely on such volatile technology indefinitely. She needed a better solution, something sustainable that wouldn't risk catastrophic failure. As she pored over schematics, Ryan Carter entered the lab. His usual calm demeanor was replaced by tension. "We've got another problem," he said, handing her a data tablet. On the screen was a map of Earth's orbital defenses, marked with red dots indicating critical failures. "The Sirens hit us harder than we thought. Half our satellites are offline, and repairs will take weeks if we even have the resources." Mia sighed, rubbing her temples. "And we're supposed to stop them if they come back?" Ryan nodded grimly. "Exactly. Which is why we need a backup plan. Fast." Before Mia could respond, an alert flashed across her workstation. A message had arrived not from Earth's forces, but from an unknown source. Intrigued, she opened it. The text was written in a language unfamiliar to her, but embedded within it was a set of coordinates near Mars Colony Alpha. Attached was a single sentence translated into English. Asterisk, "You are not alone." Asterisk, Mia's heart raced. Could this be a trap, or was someone offering help? She forwarded the message to Ethan immediately. At command headquarters, Ethan studied the coordinates with General Laura Drake. "Who sent this?" Laura asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But whoever it is, they seem to know about our situation, and they're willing to reach out." Laura frowned. "It could be the Sirens trying to lure us into a false sense of security. Or it could be allies," Ethan countered. "We need answers, Laura. If there's even a chance someone's offering assistance, we can't ignore it." After much debate, Ethan authorized a reconnaissance mission to investigate the coordinates. Jacob Hayes volunteered to lead the team, despite being physically and emotionally drained from the previous battle. When asked why he wanted to go, he simply said, "Because someone has to." The mission launched under the cover of darkness, with Jacob's small fleet approaching the designated location cautiously. As they neared the coordinates, a massive alien vessel emerged from the shadows. Its design was unlike anything they'd seen before. Smooth, organic curves that seemed almost alive. The ship didn't fire on them. Instead, it broadcast a signal requesting communication. Back on Earth, Ethan negotiated with the mysterious newcomers via video link. Their leader, a tall, slender being with shimmering skin and glowing eyes, introduced himself as Xanther. He represented the Kylari, a faction of aliens who had fled the Galactic Council years ago due to oppression and persecution. Like humanity, they sought freedom from the Council's control, and now, seeing Earth's defiance, they wished to offer their support. "We understand your struggle," Xanther said, his voice calm yet firm. The Council fears change, fears those who dare to challenge its authority. Together, we may find strength where alone we are weak. Ethan hesitated, glancing at Mia and Laura, trusting an alien faction carried risks, especially given humanity's current state. Yet, the Kailari possessed advanced technology and knowledge that could tip the scales in Earth's favor. After a long pause, Ethan extended his hand toward the screen. If you're sincere, then we welcome your help. Over the next few days, the Kailari provided invaluable assistance. They shared shielding technology that Hannah Lewis quickly integrated into human fighters, creating hybrid vessels capable of withstanding Zyran attacks. Engineers worked alongside Kailari specialists to reinforce Earth's orbital defenses, while scientists collaborated on improving the quantum reactors. For the first time since leaving the Council, humanity felt a glimmer of hope. However, not everyone supported the alliance. Public opinion was divided, with some viewing the Kailari as saviors and others as potential threats. Political leaders argued over whether relying on alien aid undermined the very independence Ethan had fought for. Tensions flared, threatening to fracture Earth's unity just when it was needed most. Amid the chaos, Mia continued her work, driven by a renewed sense of purpose. With Kailari guidance, she discovered a way to stabilize the quantum reactors, using materials found in asteroid belts. It wasn't a permanent fix, but it gave humanity breathing room. Meanwhile, Jacob prepared for his next mission, leading a strike force to disrupt the Zyran's supply lines in the asteroid belt. As preparations moved forward, Ethan addressed the people of Earth in a live broadcast. Standing before a backdrop of stars, he spoke with quiet determination. This is not the end of our journey, it is only the beginning. We have faced unimaginable challenges, but we have also shown the galaxy that humanity cannot be broken. With courage, ingenuity, and the bonds we forged together, we will prevail. His words resonated deeply, rallying citizens to rebuild and prepare for whatever came next. Though scars remained, both physical and emotional, humanity stood united. Once more, the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but for the first time, they weren't walking it alone.